What's the fastest you've seen a couple go from married to divorced, and what caused it? A friend of mine worked for her husband's brother. It's how they met. Once they got married, her boss stopped paying her because she was family now and you don't have to pay family. So she quit and found another job immediately without consulting her husband. And in a fury, her husband changed all the locks while she was asleep in the back bedroom and put deadbolts on the outside of the door. So she could only leave their house if he let her out. And took her cell phone. They didn't have a landline. It took her about 2 hours to get a hold of us online. Dumbus didn't think she could contact people with a laptop. So we called the police, who busted down the door and got her out. Husband went to prison. Her divorce went through real quick. And now, 5 years later, she lives on the coast and got engaged again to a very sweet guy who knows we're all watching like hawks. 1 week. A couple of friends seemed happily married. Next thing I know, the wife has shared a pic of herself on the beach in a wedding dress being lofted by some goth looking long haired dude. Her new groom. No idea. Relative of mine got married and divorced 6 months later. Turns out they had never seriously discussed whether or not they wanted children prior to getting married. One adamantly wanted children and the other didn't, and it drove them apart. They were together for 3 or 4 years before getting married and somehow never figured this out. My little sister got married to the love of her life at 17. 2 months later she ran away and filed for divorce. BC her 22-year-old husband became an abusive drunk as soon as their marriage license was signed. Wedding photographer here. Over 5 years. I know of 3 couples that are no longer together. 1 couple married in September. Divorced by February. 1 couple had been high school sweethearts. Waited 10 years to get married. And the marriage, from what I can see, lasted less than a year. The other couple. The groom was drunk for the whole wedding. Felt up his mother. And they used to post their photos all over FB and IG. Now they're no longer to be seen. And the status of married is gone. Wait. Felt up his own mother? I mean, the bride's I could at least grasp her understanding, but his own. That I can't. My uncle had married someone 3 months after dating them. He had 2 dachshunds and 2 cats. She demanded that he got rid of the dogs and got 2 new ones of her choice. Well, it wasn't really a divorce. My brother married his girlfriend in Japan, Cinderella wedding at Disneyland and everything. Turns out she decided she was going to stay in Japan, despite them planning to move to Canada with him. Later he found out she never submitted the paperwork. So they were never married. Friend of mine was divorced and remarried in the same month. We all thought it was a little quick. But turns out they had been hot for each other for years. Anyway, a couple months after she got married, I saw her Facebook status change to separated. Don't know if they're still married or not. Worked at a wedding venue and the bride told the groom, who was from Arkansas, that there was to be no call of the hogs during the wedding speech. Groomsman proceeds to do it anyway. And the bride was furious and went into the back with the bridal party. Dude slapped her and said this tea is getting annulled tomorrow. Honestly, she might have not dodged the slap, but she dodged a bullet. One of my classmates in HS married her boyfriend before graduating college. She was one of those girls that had her entire life planned. So we were a little surprised that she didn't wait to graduate. But he was just about perfect, so it made sense. He was intelligent, motivated, sweet, etc. He would come over to her house on weekends and mow her grass, do little repair jobs, take out the trash. Perfect courtship. Beautiful proposal. A wedding that everyone talked about for weeks. 6 months later we go out for a girls' night and we beg for details on her wedded bliss. Seeing as she's the first one married and she breaks down. He had just stopped. Everything he had done before marriage just disappeared. It was like he was done adulting and reverted back to childhood. Wouldn't eat anything but spaghetti and chicken nuggets. Literally. Started skipping class. Cut his hours at work to less than half. Didn't do any housework. Any yard work. Would spend the entire night up with his best friend playing video games. To the point the friend complained. Drama intensified. And they were divorced before they hit their 1-year anniversary. The actual divorce has to wait because of visa issues. But basically they got married. Everything was fine, and then about a month later she got weirdly quiet about their relationships, and about 9 months after the wedding he told her he thinks of her like a sister. Holiday romance. Long distance for several years. A ton of red flags, and the second they moved in together things went to hell. Basically he didn't do shit around the home. She earned all the money and paid for all of his stuff on top of it. He then squandered her money even when she asked him not to. She actually had to put a limit on his phone contract. I don't think he planned to leech on her. He's just an inconsiderate asshole. They're waiting it out because she's too nice to send him back. Good friend of mine got married. On their honeymoon, husband tells her he needs space and isn't sure what he wants. Then he tells her he's leaving her for her best friend, who he's having an affair with. My friend is now blissfully happy and thriving, and he's still a piece of garbage. My dad worked with a guy who had 9 divorces under his belt. Shortest lasting 2 weeks. They were dating for a week. Got married. And divorced 2 weeks later. No one knows why. My boyfriend of on and off for 6 years started cheating on me with this girl in Texas. We lived in California. We broke up due to the cheating. A month or so later the girl moved in with him. They got married on my birthday. Divorced 2 months later because they were both abusive to each other and she was cheating on him with his best friend. Sometimes karma is just so real. I went to a wedding where the bride got drunk and the groom picked up a phone and saw that she was assisting a co-worker during the entire wedding. He told the officiant to not file the paperwork. Great reception though. Edit. This occurred at the end of the reception as they were leaving to go to the honeymoon suite. The story is she was very drunk and her phone kept getting notifications, so he picked it up. They did not go on their honeymoon and they returned the gifts to everyone. The guests weren't told about what happened for a couple weeks as the bride was trying to save the relationship. I was also not privy to the legality of the nuptials not being submitted to the city clerk. So I can't help on that front. Guy saved himself a bunch of money on the divorce. Years and years ago, my uncle's girlfriend planned a wedding and invited everyone and didn't tell him until the week of. I don't know the whole story about why she did it, but he went through with it and quietly got it annulled and broke up with her. About 30 minutes. Bride told the groom in the run up to the wedding, "Do not smash the cake in my face. Do not." His buddies all got on him about being a PSSY and showing her who's really in charge of this marriage. I was at the wedding. He smashed the cake in her face. She walked out of the reception and had it annulled. I mean, if he can be that easily pressured by his friends, then it seems like she dodged a bullet there. Young couple in their late 20s. Bride was the daughter of a friend. Daughter never learned to budget. Save. Spend wisely. Pay bills on time. Prioritize. They both worked full-time at good jobs in San Francisco and lived in Pacific Heights in a purchased condo that was quite nice. She took them both into a ton of debt. Had to have the very latest of everything that was material in nature. Clothing. Furniture. Etc. She would put $1,000 on their credit card in an hour on absolutely nothing. She nagged her husband from the moment he walked in the door from work. Even in front of company. It lasted 2 years. He couldn't get away fast enough. Her wedding photos were hilarious. No smiles. It is very tragic. But dad was driving 2 of his boys home from a camping trip. And they got into an accident and the car went into the lake. Dad was able to rescue the oldest boy, but he could not get the youngest out of his car seat in time. They were able to get the little one breathing, but he had no brain activity and they had to pull the plug. The marriage ended pretty much immediately. Child loss will either drive 2 people apart or bring them closer through the trauma. It is one of the hardest things I think a relationship can go through. And I'm grateful that it was the latter for my husband and I. My own marriage in 2004. Kissed my wife goodbye for a 3-month deployment to Pakistan in March. I never saw her again. After 2 months of being there, she told me she wanted to leave me. At the time, there was a loophole in divorce law. One website was exploding. Quick simple divorce. Lawyers in Guam were allowed to process uncontested divorces pretty quickly. Paid $800 and sent her the paperwork. We were living in Germany at the time and she signed and left for the US before I got home. The divorce was finalized in August of 2004. What caused it? Dunno really. Honestly, she was unhappy prior to my departure. We had only been married a couple years. We kinda rushed to get married in 2002 when I got orders to Germany.